All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. It's funny, before I even started this, we sat down to do this interview, I was thinking about the last time that this guest was on the podcast. And we've been doing this pandemic thing for so long that you were, last time I talked to you, was also in this format. And it seems like it was quite a while ago, which just goes to show how long that this sort of Zoom thing has become the new normal for everything, whether it's work or podcasting or anything else. So I'm glad to have you back on. It kind of sucks that, when I talked to you last time, we were right at the beginning of this thing and everyone had some optimism that it was going to end. And now we're still, 2 years later or whatever, right in the thick of it. But I think the best way to start this off is if you want to just introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what it is that you do, so people who aren't familiar can get familiar with who you are.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Jeffrey Cottis. I perform as Fuller Hull. I'm a solo artist right now. I'm a singer-songwriter, indie, folk, kind of alt-country approach. I started, as you mentioned, kind of right at the beginning of the pandemic. So everything I've done to this date has been in this bubble, whether it's in the studio or at my home office here. It's all been sort of online. So it's been a few shows as those a few things have opened up, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I am still optimistic, but we'll see when that happens.
That's good. I mean, it's actually, you're in an interesting position in that a lot of the people that I have on the show, they all sort of had this active thing going with touring and all of this, and then suddenly came to an abrupt stop, and they've had to readjust. And you kind of just came back to this whole music thing right at the beginning. So you've had this very unique experience amid all the other unique experiences, in that you're just like, it's strictly a pandemic only project so far.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when I was my first go around was decades ago, and of course a very different environment. So when I was asking for advice from people on, what do I got to know about now, and there was this straightforward things that you would expect, but for the most part, nobody had any answers because nobody knew how to deal with what the future would bring. So in many ways, I was lucky that I didn't have any expectations, and I just sort of rolled with it. And it's probably been good in a sense because it slowed me down a lot, and I
Sure.
didn't sort of overreach and exceed. And I took the time to learn things as I was going along. So it's been pretty good. I mean, all things considered.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And so, what is it? I mean, you released an album. You've had an album out throughout the pandemic, basically, right? And so, what has that experience been like? Because I know, again, you've worked in the music business before, years earlier, and then now you're releasing music to the world in this situation, and you've had time, I guess, now to sort of consider how that release went, how people have received the album, things like that. What has the experience been for you?
Well, like I said, I was asking a lot of people on how to really do it right, and how do you release an album? And between some conferences I attended, and all the TikTok videos that I've watched of how to do it right. What I did was I released a few songs about a year ago in March of 2021, and then sort of picked at that over the year. And then I realized that, it's been a good year for me. And I'm going to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of my album March by just putting it out everywhere. So I made sure it was out on all streaming services. The album's always been available, whether it's on Bandcamp or at one of the shows, but now it's on SoundCloud. Now it's basically where anybody wants to get it, because it's time that it starts walking on its own, and it also, by putting it out there, it gets me free, I think, to think about new music and what am I going to do with all those other songs that I want to release and record.
How do you feel about these songs now, the ones that are on the March album? I mean, how have they grown, I guess, over the past year? I mean, like you said, you have new stuff you want to work on. What is your sort of perception, given that distance of time, since you originally released of how it sounds and how the songs are how they kind of have been put out there?
Have they aged well? And I think
that's a shorter way to say it. Yes.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because that if for your viewers have seen the first video, there were some songs that I wrote, again, years ago, that I just wanted to get out. And then as I locked down the studio time and the ideas started churning, I kind of replaced a lot of them with new stuff. Yeah, but there's still a couple that were older. And I was concerned, frankly, because they were written at a different time in my life and
Yeah.
in a very different music environment. And my concern was whether I would get sick of them or whether they just wouldn't hold up, or maybe it was too much of a vanity project and not really taking it seriously. But I'm very happy with the whole package that John Paul Peters at Private Ear helped me put together, because a lot of it was really helped or co-produced by him as well. And I'm still getting good compliments from it. Like I had a radio interview in southwest Manitoba, and the music director was very complimentary of it. So I mean, that is also a bolster. I don't have to be too hard on myself and just take it for what it is. And every once in a while, I'll go back and I say, that particular note, didn't quite good or sound good, or there was a drag on the finger strings, which made it screech. And the guy said, well, it is what it is, and it was part of what I did at the time. And so far, so good. I still like it. So it's I'm still playing it.
Are you the type of person who does kind of go in and analyze it over and over again and then to hear the mistakes and you kind of obsess over that, or are you willing to just move on to the next thing?
I used to be a bit more perfect, or striving for perfect.
Okay.
And then, as experience beats me down, you realize that, the perfect can't be the enemy of the good. And one of the things that JP really kind of says, like, this is the real sound, so roll with it. And that real sound, he said, trust me, the real sound will be better than something that's studio polished and pure. And totally. He's right. Those little small errors and mistakes and kind of extra breaths, they really make it a real thing for me.
Yeah, and there's definitely, I think people, I mean, not everyone, some people like to hear the super polished studio stuff, but there's definitely, I mean, speaking for myself, I love hearing stuff like that. Like I love hearing, someone playing a harmonica and you can hear them taking breaths in between blows and you can hear the fingers on the fretboard and stuff. It just adds character to it, I think. I mean, as long as it's not done on purpose, if it's a natural thing that happens through the recording process, then I don't know. I think it can definitely add to the performance.
I can't remember who said it, but someone was describing Neil Young, and he said, you're thinking he's going to be making a mistake at any moment. It's like you're on that edge because you just don't know. And I figure, well, if that works for that, then I can totally let a number of things slide, right?
Yeah. And when you hear the mistakes on his records too, you're just like, yeah, that was great, and then you're excited about it. It's not like, oh, that sucks, he screwed up. It's like, oh, I caught the mistake, and then you keep moving on because it works. Yeah. So I guess, like, I mean, you haven't had the good thing about this sort of enforced time off, I guess, from not being able to play many shows, means that a lot of this music on that record is going to be new to live audiences for the most part, right? So
I mean, my reach is still quite close to my body. So as I start to travel a little bit, I want to do a bit of a local Manitoba show and reach out to some of my other rural communities that I want to go to. And then, there's always the stuff you do online. And I got some good feedback from a handful of people overseas and in Australia. But it's really, I'm looking for the home market, the home audience, because really I don't plan on traveling anytime soon, and I just can't see it happening. But maybe once things open up, it'll be better. But it's just one venue at a time. And it really this next year, now that I've done the first year, this next year is really forcing myself out of the comfort of my little bubble. And just sort of stretching.
When you're playing shows with this, I mean, do you have what does that look like? Is it just you up there with a guitar, or do you have a band that you're going to be working with, or how are you presenting it, I guess, in front of an audience?
It's just for Hull as a solo act right now, and that's how it started, and that's how it's been when I was writing it. But so really you'll walk in, whether it's a farmer's market or a restaurant or wherever I am. You'll walk in, it'll be me and my amp and my microphone and my guitar, and it's pretty straightforward. And I'm always balancing the song and the word, and I know that I like to tell a little bit about the story, but I don't want to have it become a spoken word event either.
Yeah.
There's always that balance. And but I do have plans in the works to grow the project as well. So I think that probably by this time next year for sure it'll be a Fuller Hall Plus, and we'll see how that turns out.
Cool. Does that mean you're gonna have to rework a lot of the songs to suit that, or are most of them sort of ready to band? Like, can you just sort of add people and they'll be fully formed, or is it going to be a major transition?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a major transition because when we're in the studio, we had session people come in, and JP Aquin added his magic. So we have a wide selection of instruments that we can kind of pick and choose from, and then we have about half the songs are really stripped down, and so we can either build those out if we need to, or we can strip down the other stuff that are more that have a lot more instruments on them and bring them down to something that's manageable. And I think that the album, it's a 9-song album, and I've probably got about a dozen or 15 more songs that are ready to go. So as more people come in, then that'll give us an opportunity to really let them shine as well, and change the songs to meet the bigger project.
Yeah, that's cool. It's, I mean, I guess you have the ability to sort of play a lot of different types of shows with having those options, right? It can be just you in someone's living room or at a farmer's market or wherever, versus like when you do have other members there, you can play on a bigger stage and give a different kind of experience.
Exactly. Like right now, it's kind of a down tempo approach, right? There's a lot of I'm not sure even how to describe it. It's basically just an honest song at a medium tempo. But there's something that I would like to do, like in the future, is to really liven it up and have an actual kick-ass show. I would like to have like an all-electric set, for example. I'd really like to get away from the strum and get into some of the really exciting stuff that we can do, maybe even some online on-stage jamming and that kind of stuff. So, cool. But that'll come as we develop, I think.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be interesting to see how the songs change over time once you start doing them.
Well, generally, I mean, the songs right now are sampled between sort of this kind of an unplugged 1990s vibe, right up to some like a farmer's market kind of country style, and I guess it is generally in my personality to experiment anyway. I'm not I don't really have a blue sky approach. I have a niche where I fit, but I think there's so much that I can do that I want to do. And it just really fits with my own personality. Like whether it's, I was just doing chores in the farm here, whether it's that or fixing the machines that we got, or, strumming a guitar or picking up the banjo. There's just different things that I like to get at, and I can move from one and see how I do, and then move the next. And if I like the first thing, I'll go back and kind of drop what I don't like and move on with what I do.
Yeah. What part of the province are you in right now? Because you're not in the city. You're rural.
Right. Yeah. We have a small farm just outside of Beausejour, Manitoba, in a former hamlet called St. Owens.
Okay.
And we've got a small acreage, and it's been because I've been locked down like everyone else. I've been working from home, so that's enabled me to do a bit more, less commuting and a bit more farm chores.
Sure. Yeah.
So just to trade off either way.
Is that a good sort of I guess what I'm trying to ask is, there's I've talked to a lot of people on the show over the years who do a lot of rural shows. They do a lot of, there's like almost a circuit of rural communities that have, whether it's a farmer's market or a fair or some kind of event where they're looking for live music. And it seems like, they go from town to town to town. Is where you're located like kind of a good starting point for that? Are you near a lot of stuff that's happening that you could potentially get gigs at?
Yeah, in Beausejour itself, I'm pretty fortunate because there's at least off the top of my head 4 or 5 different venues that are like they're free for the public. It's a low impact show. I can just drop in, and nice. As long as I got power, we can go. and it's really good. Sometimes we get it's a farmers market, so you get people on the way to the lake. Sometimes it's a dedicated show. They have this little flower garden called the Daylily Gardens, and it's got a little pergola. It's kind of an idyllic little spot, but you could set up there, and they have at least last year they had a show every Sunday. So it's just in the town itself. Like I can book up half a summer just on those kinds of things at a very moderate pace. But I'm very close also to those little hamlets along the way to Winnipeg, and I'm just really an hour from the city anyway. But I do want to reach out. I hope to go to Brandon and play a show there this year because I've got cousins out there. I wouldn't mind stacking the audience with family.
Guaranteed applause. Yeah,
exactly right. And I'd like to really try it out because I think a lot of the material that I have they might resonate more with the rural audience anyway. I think the melody is universal, but some of the lyrics are specific to sort of the experiences of a small town rodeo, for example, or the challenge of working on a small farm when everything seems against you.
Well, and I guess
what you're doing, right?
It's different, I guess, right? To hear that. I mean, living in the city, to hear that and be like, okay, I can imagine what that situation's like, versus actually being like, oh, I did this yesterday. Like this is something that I can very, very personally and viscerally relate to. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I try to make it. I try to make the lyrics relatable as possible, but it's not always the case. Like I applied for a grant and I didn't get it, and one of the comments back from the reviewers was, "Doesn't relate." Like, okay, that's fair. It doesn't relate because
that's interesting.
It's I guess it's more of a Manitoba sensibility. That was like a national grant, so it was somewhere else, but.
Well, that's I imagine that people who are choosing these things locally would probably they would have a different vibe in general that they're listening for because of what the type of music that's always sort of been around this area has been.
I would imagine, but I have no idea. I mean, I'm still really wet behind the ears on this thing. So the amount of grants and the people I've been able to meet to talk about these things have all been online as well. So I still have a lot of people to meet and a lot of things to learn on what to look. And I guess like everything else, there is nobody really knows the secret, and nobody can figure out the algorithm. It's just sort of if it works, it works, and keep trying until it does.
Yeah, that's a whole universe that I don't have any experience in whatsoever. Like when I was in bands, we would just dub tapes at home and photocopy covers and sell them. So I'm so detached from that. I'm glad it's there for because that means people are obviously taking advantage of it, especially in times like this. But yeah, I couldn't imagine even starting to write a grant for something. It's I imagine it's hard to get your head around it at first.
Well, they have courses and they have like sessions to help you out, and there really are like all of the granting organizations, all the music associations that are out there. They're really geared to help you succeed as best as you can. And if that's just successfully completing a grant that ultimately is not successful, like that itself is a win because you're building skills. It forces you to be a bit more introspective. Like it forces me to describe myself, which is one of the most cringiest sort of things I often have to deal with, but people want to know, like, who do you sound like? How do you describe yourself? And I every time I kind of shrug my shoulders and like, well, my name's Jeff, and I kind of take it from there. But it's been a good tool because it's forced me to kind of identify, not to pigeonhole myself, but to identify similar sounds that I either sound like or I want to sound like, and take it from there.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely in an era where that's important, almost more than it used to be, because everything is playlisted and organized into. There's so many weird little niche corners you can get into now, and you can never leave if you don't want to. And you can be just like in post something core, this that, and there's like it's 17 hyphens, and you can listen to that music only, whatever it is, for the next 20 years, and to the exception of everything else. Or you can just go wide, but just everything is labeled and categorized and all that. So you have to. People need to know what you are, I guess.
And if you're not careful, as any music listener will know, that the algorithm will keep feeding you the same stuff. Right, so you've got to actually search out new music, not unlike, when you and I were kids, we'd go to the record store and actually figure, what's that? That's a whole different area. I have never been there before. Let me check it out. You actually have to do that, but it's a bit more slippery, because if you're not careful, like you'll just you'll find some great stuff because it's right in your wheelhouse, but there's this whole wide universe out there that you will never see unless you actually actively seek it out.
For sure, yeah. I say especially with streaming and stuff like that, because it is serving you stuff that it thinks you want to listen to. And if you listen to the same artist, every day for a year, it's going to be like, oh, this is what you like. And then not venture. It's not going to give you some techno project if you've been listening to Bob Dylan for a year straight, So
yeah, exactly right.
So if people want to hear March and sort of find out what you're up to as far as potential shows now that things are starting to open up a little bit, what's the best way to track you down online and keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's fullerhull.ca. I also have a Bandcamp page, and that's where you can listen to it for free. I mean, it's available for purchase as well, but it's available online there for free. SoundCloud, it's free. You don't have to subscribe. And both Bandcamp and SoundCloud are great because you don't have to subscribe to any of the streaming services. But if you do have one, I'm on all the. I go through a distribution service, so. It's Apple Music, it's Spotify, it's Amazon, it's Deezer, it's all like I think there's about 20 or 30 of them that I can see on my little itinerary, but I think it just goes more than that. So anywhere you stream your favorite music, you can find Fuller Hull.
Cool.
In terms of shows, I do have a calendar on my website. I've also make it a habit of putting it up on the Manitoba Music Association website because they got a great service for people, for all musicians to just sort of let people know what they're doing. And then, of course, on social media, I'm always I try not to be too obnoxious on it, but whenever I do have something coming up, I like to just make sure that people in the neighborhood know. And so I'll put it out there usually about a few days if I forget, or about a week before.
Cool.
And right now, I'm trying to be reasonable in what my goals are. Like I played, I think, 6 shows last summer because that was what was available with everything else kind of up and down.
That's not bad. There was a short window there, so that's pretty good.
It was it was a very short window, and it turns out that I was the port in the storm they needed to fill the slot, so I took it. And this year I'm hoping to at least get a show a month, and I think I've achieved that, and I'm trying to get a bit more. I've applied to a few festivals as well, but that's a new thing for me as well, and they don't know who I am yet, so we'll see if I vibe for them, and if so, then I might be fortunate to play a few festivals, but if not, then I'll just keep going and find other venues, because there's a lot of opportunities out there. Like even things that are online, like through side door access, which is a new thing for me. I don't really know how to use it yet, but I might do something like that as well. Cool. Just to stream it and just produce my own event, I guess. But yeah, we'll keep it up. But yeah, the best way is through the website, and then just follow me on social media.
Awesome.